Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion today is the future of tourism in Sri Lanka. Joining us this evening on the show are Bandula Ekanayaka, Vice President of the Hotel Association of Sri Lanka and CEO of Blackpool Holdings, Harpo Gunratna, CEO and founder of Harpo's Cafes and Restaurants, former president of the Colombo City Restaurants Collection, Rohan Tatakorala, former chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau as well as the EDB, Maxim Wickramasinghe, Director Marketing, Renaissance de Ceylon, and as well as Therma Collection. Joining us this evening to pose questions from our panelists, onto my immediate right is Naveksha Gunasekara as well as Nadim Majid onto my immediate left. You too can join in as far as the conversation is concerned. The number to send in your messages is 076 656 5353. The number once again 076 656 5353. So we have four industry specialists tonight on the show to tell us what's going on, what happened, and where are we heading. Let's start off with Bandula Ekanayaka, Vice President of the Hotel Association of Sri Lanka as well as CEO of Blackpool Holdings. Bandula, the future of tourism. Do we really have a future? Your time starts now.
Always we have up and downs. We had really. And our tourism is not going on a straight this thing for the, if you take 3 or 4 decades ago even, we were not climbing up, our curve is not upturn. Always we had up and downs, and at the moment what we feel is we had a better season than what we were expected. So until from November onwards up to April, we were enjoying a good occupancy. All the hotels are maintaining very good occupancies. Now there is a small, as everybody knows, May and June is a lull month, right? And July, August, once again on the books we have some sort of improvements, and then we have to see how it goes on. If everything goes smoothly, the country situation and all the world situation and everything, we will have a better season than what we had in 2018 like. So we are keeping our fingers crossed and we are doing our level best to keep the things going on, and the hotels are doing their level best to keep the, I think, to maintain their standards. And there was a very, I think, 4 years we didn't have anything like, everybody was doing very badly. And gradually now we are just coming out of woods, like I would say. And I think if we can go on like this really, because the last few months was very good really, I think they will vouch to that and agree with me, because December, January, February, March we had a very good occupancy throughout the country like. And then there was a drop last, I think November, I think April, latter part of April there was a drop, so everybody felt it. And now May, June, always it's like low months, right?
So Bandula, you're comparing 2023 latter figures, that's November to March.
March, yes.
Are you comparing with 2018 where the figures were high, or are you comparing with the previous year where the figures were not
actually,
that great?
Still we have not come up to 2018, 2019. So I'm talking about the experience what we had for last 3 years. Like.
So you're saying what happened post 2019 Easter bombings,
yes,
and then the bankruptcy phase in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka as a nation has not yet picked up.
Not yet picked up, right? So still we have to pick up. At the moment we are struggling, still some hotels are struggling because most of the hotels owners are small and medium scale businessmen. Because out of I think if you take nearly 80% of the hotel owners are small and medium scale business people, and the out of that 80% also, I think another by 80%, another 80% is I think hotels which are lesser than 100 rooms. So that is the scenario, because there are 200 and, to be exact, there are 206 registered hotels with the tourism board.
Very quickly, Bandula, do you see the right direction by the minister in charge in relation to increasing the number of foreign tourist arrivals to the country?
Still, we have not launched the global marketing strategies. So still we are planning to put it up in, I think there are in the next 2 months, I think they are hoping to do a massive marketing program.
But every time we check, of course, Bandula, individuals on the Tourism Promotion Bureau out of the country.
Those are they visit for the fairs and other things. Now actually currently the ATM is going on. Arabian Travel Mart is going on really. It started on the 5th of this month. So for those things we participate, but it's not promotion of the country. It's individuals now. Nearly, I think this time ATM, I think there are nearly 70 participants are there. So those are the individual hotels or the travel agents or the DMCs. So they go on their own, but organized by the tourist board.
Not cushy visits overseas on the expense of taxpayers.
I can't say it's cushy visits to overseas, but mainly the private sector is the tourism industry is driven by the private sector.
I don't know, Bandula. I'm just asking you. So we leave it at that as far as Bandula Ekanayake, Vice President of the Hotel Association of Sri Lanka, Director, CEO of Blackpool Holdings. I now put my attention towards Harpo Gunaratna, CEO and founder, Harpo's Cafes and Restaurants, as well as former President of the Colombo City Restaurants Collection. Harpo, what are your thoughts on the future of tourism in Sri Lanka?
Good evening. I think I'm being very positive, of course, and I think there's a good future for our country when it comes to tourism. We're the third largest income earner for the country, and I think we will be pushing that if everything goes well, we should be pushing that to number one, because we got a great product, right? Like no other product in this part of the world, and I think tourism from where we were, and we are. As a country, as citizens, we bounce back like that. And that's the greatest thing, that we're such a resilient nation. You see, we have gone through 30-year-old wars, we have gone through tsunamis, we have gone through Aragali, we have gone through economic crisis, we have gone through Easter Sundays. We have seen everything as a country which promotes tourism. But, we have bounced back as well, And it's the first industry to bounce back. But it's the first industry to get hit as well. That you have to remember. Anything, it's a very sensitive thing. Travel is a very sensitive thing, And obviously people are nervous to travel to country when they are blacklisted or when there are, embassies giving warnings, don't travel to this country. But yet with that, look at the last year, we had certain, like the UK was not encouraging their citizens to travel, if I'm not mistaken, Germany as well. But yet, you see, we are in a very unique situation. We got the Indians there, which is a massive market, And we are a country which is very affordable for the Indian market, if you look at it, So I think from where we are, it's just a matter of going up further, Yes, there are things which we have to put in place, all these things take time after what we came from 2018 to where we are now, So those things should happen. I mean, we can discuss that further, but I think we are very positive that things will definitely work out. And there are tourists coming, you just travel around the country. Today, with so much of, you say, the digital marketing, and they are marketing themselves and saying, come to Sri Lanka. Not that the Sri Lanka Tourist Board is bringing them here and saying, come and do this. There are people who are individual travel bloggers who are actually talking about our country, which are not paid, which are actually doing their job because they love travel, period, And I think that's taken a huge turn, because people who are watching on TikTok and various other media, it's working well. So, as I said, we have not rolled out the marketing plan as yet, not launched it. And if you are looking at 2.5 million tourists, I think, the way it's going is, as you said, April, May, there's a slight dip. But there are people yet visiting Sri Lanka.
Harpo, I want to ask you a question about local tourism as well, because you're in a better footing to answer because of the fact that you do a lot of cafes and restaurants in Colombo.
Yeah.
When there was an economic crunch in the country, everyone thought that people would not be visiting restaurants, they would be cutting down expenses. Do you see that happening in the last few months in Sri Lanka? People, are they frequently visiting these restaurants as they have been doing before?
Yeah, it's a good point actually. You know, we tend to forget our local travel, you know. And that's something which we lived on during the last 30-year-old war, right? During the 88, 89, all that. It was the local people who traveled to the hotels. You know, they are the people who travel to the hotels. I'm telling you, from our restaurants, cafes and restaurants, people are going out. People are eating. And we have to understand that we have to depend on our domestic market. I mean, that's what kept it alive during that 30-year-old war. You know, and don't forget, there are more and more people opening restaurants. There are big chains coming into Sri Lanka to open. There are big hotel chains coming in here. So the local market is something I always maintain that we have to make sure, and I think the locals are supporting us. You know, as soon as the Aragale and all that finished, and when the petrol crisis finished, the first people who traveled were the locals into the hotels. You know, so they are a huge component in the local, I mean, in the industry. You know.
So Harper, when you look at even the tax regime, now you say that local tourism is very important and imperative to move forward. But if you look at the tax regime, you have a VAT at 18%.
Yes.
Then most of the restaurants charge a 15% service charge.
That's right.
And then there's an additional...
Yes, you get a 31.2% or something you have to pay.
31.2%.
You get a TDL, you get a 0.5%, I think, municipality.
Yeah, so it's around 31.5%. So how important is it for the government to look at all these costs just because they have to look at the local entrepreneurs' mindset also in this respect?
So what do? It's a chicken and egg situation, right? The country had to. No one said to bring the VAT down, right? It was just brought down overnight, and people never grumbled on paying VAT about 4 or 5 years ago. On their checks, they were paying that. Yes, it was increased because there's a crisis here. We need the country needs money. And it's not a permanent thing, I hope. You know, these things will change, you know, from 15 it went to 18, yes. But, I mean, yes, it's a big whack on anyone going out. If your bill is 100 rupees, you have to put another 31% on that. What do you do? You know, but saying that, like I said before, and like we discussed, you go to hotels are full, restaurants are full. You can't walk into a restaurant or a hotel today without making a reservation.
On a Friday or Saturday?
Yeah, you forget it. You have to make it. And a lot of people forget that. You know, some people walk in thinking you can get a reservation. Sorry, sir, the hotels we are full. And most restaurants and hotels are full. You try getting a booking on a Friday or a Saturday in a hotel on a long weekend. Sorry, we are sold out. And they're paying that. But we just discussed, they're paying the 31.2%.
With so much of difficulty, Harpo.
No, but people, you see, people need that exit as well. They need to go out and relax, and you know there is that 31%, but they are
who can pay that.
And also, you know, as I said, we are a resilient nation, a resilient bunch of people. Yes, looking for the good times ahead.
We still don't mind paying 31% from the entire check that we owe. But Harpo, we'll get back to you because you spoke about that there are key areas that need to be put in place. We'll talk about that momentarily as the show goes along. I now move my attention towards Rohan Tatukorala, former chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau as well as the EDB. Rohan, what exactly is happening in Sri Lanka now? So much of discussions about a lot of issues. Shed some light as to how do we put things right.
See, Shamil, I think the point that was very well addressed by Bandula was that tourism is addressed by the private sector. And we can see the vibe taking place where the upturn is happened in the industry. But the question that needs everybody's attention is sustainability. I mean, the question is that, you know, if you allow the private sector to run the way the private sector is running, they could bring in the return that is required. But then you have to make sure that the interventions that are done is only going to support. But if you're going to bring in things like minimum room rate, where you're trying to curtail demand supply chain, You have this recent intervention that happened with the visa issue. Likewise, what happens is that, you get the whole private sector like the Tassels and the Slitos spending so much of time discussing these issues that the time that they take in terms of driving their own business is affected. So sustainability is one of the biggest issues that is there as we speak, but private and public sector has got together and put the industry right. We're getting about a $2 billion coming into the country. But if you ask me, if we are to look at the reforms that the country is looking in terms of reforms to make this industry a 4 billion industry, that interventions are very slow as we speak as at now, and all of us are also responsible for it. It's just not pointing a finger at anybody, but that's the truth.
Now you spoke about the minimum room rate. If you look at countries that are doing well in Europe in terms of tourism, let's talk about Greece for an example. The room rate in Greece for a 4-star hotel is starting price is 180 euros. That's approximately around $195 to $200. However, in Sri Lanka, the prices are much lower. But then again, you're competing with countries like India and even Malaysia, Bangkok. The prices are very low. If you go to Malaysia, for an example, a 5-star hotel, the price is starting at $90 per night. In Sri Lanka, however, the price is starting at around $145, and if you're a tourist, booking a hotel at a 5-star hotel in Colombo is around $300+ with bed and breakfast. How does these dynamics work?
See, it's all to do with your supply and demand. See, Shamil, if you take a typical cost of running a hotel as we speak right now, the cost of electricity, if you take the cost of labor, if you put together, then if you want to make a decent return, that's the price that you have to pay. Now, that's where the challenge is. Now, for example, last year, the CEB made a profit of 70 billion Sri Lankan rupees. But then the question is that who lost? All the exporters lost and the industry lost because they had to jack their prices up, or they got squeezed in terms of the margin that you earn. CEB should not be making a profit. They should be giving a service. So now these are the kinds of regulations, that's the point I was mentioning about sustainability. The private sector is driving, but the sustainability has to come from policy. The point you mentioned is so right, $300, but what is the debt stock of the hotel industry? 700 billion rupees yet in terms of debt to be paid.
Now, why I'm asking you this question, Rohante, is the e-visa, there is a waiver scheme that has been introduced for citizens of China, India, Indonesia, Russia, Thailand, Malaysia and Japan. Are we attracting the right kind of tourists to the country, or are we attracting the backpackers? If you're looking to making this $2.1 billion US industry in 2023 to double digit or even make it growth-wise, mustn't we look at the high-end tourists who can spend money? And does visa waivers help?
See, right now, if you analyze the top 17 countries in our part of the world, the highest price happens to be typically our country. So now this whole issue that Shamir came up in the last week is a real eye-opener on this cost of where everybody is dropping prices on visa. The logic is they want to attract. Now, why are they doing that? Because there's a recession in Germany. There's a recession coming up in the western part. There are 2 wars which are in place, and obviously the only way you can attract these people is to make sure that your destination is attractive. So research shows that if your product is strongly promoted globally, it's not the visa fee that's going to determine somebody coming in. So the point that was mentioned by the panel today also was that, the global campaign, which we have been trying to do for the last 10 years, and now, it's finally going to be rolling out maybe end of this month or maybe in June. The chances are that, that proposition might help us to actually attract a better clientele coming in.
Right.
But that your point is, I'm just going back to the theme that I was talking about, which is the sustainability. of the
no, my
strategy.
question was, Rohanta, are we looking at quality or are we looking at quantity?
When you don't have a proposition globally, what happens is you naturally look at quantity. But then once your campaign breaks out, we have seen this in different other parts of the world also, where when the proposition is into the marketplace, you tend to start attracting a better clientele coming in.
Thank you very much, Rohanta Thukara, former chairman of Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau as well as EDB. Rohanta, I remember in 2007 when Malaysia launched its campaign, the Miracle to Asia. I interviewed the Malaysian tourism minister in Sri Lanka, and he was promoting Sri Lankan tourists to arrive to Malaysia, and that shows the real passion of tourism. And today look at where Malaysia stands at double-digit growth, and tourism is booming in a country like that. Anyway, let's now move to Maxim Wickramasinghe, Director of Marketing, Renaissance de Ceylon and Thermal Collection. Maxim, good run. Can you be satisfied with what we have achieved as a nation post 2019 and subsequent to the Aragale?
Yeah, I think if you ask me this question, if I compare to what I thought would happen in November of this year, I think the season has been, beyond expectations in terms of hotels as well as our DMC business. But yeah, I think, there's a long way to go. And I think one thing that was brought up was the debt in the industry. So there has been a lot of schemes to restructure debt during COVID especially, and these Sunday attacks. So I think we definitely need a good run. Hoteliers, and there's a lot of investment also coming into tourism. So you definitely need quite a long run. And I think the point Rohanta brought up with sustainability is extremely important. I think we are a country that we really, need to understand where we want to go in terms of tourism. We have never really positioned ourselves as a country for high-end or whatever type of tourists we really want to attract. But I think in the other way, we also have to look at the current situation in the country. If you look at, for example, you can do a quick survey in terms of properties in Sri Lanka. We have 200 odd registered hotels. Then all you have to do is go on booking.com and see the number of properties there are in Sri Lanka, which is in the multiple of thousands. I forget the exact number, but so what we see in Sri Lanka is there's actually there's a bit of hotels and products for everyone. So I think that's why we also have to see how we can cater to all of that, because whether we like it or not, in Sri Lanka we have a lot of places which are catering to the backpacker market. So I personally think Sri Lanka should always be a destination for all types of tourists. But I think we have to work a bit better to understand how we make this happen, because I think especially when you look at developing the country, we do have limited space. We do have limited capacity in our national parks. We are already having issues with national parks like Yala and even national parks around Min area and all of that. So I think we really have to have a bit of more of a holistic look instead of just driving for numbers all the time, and understanding where exactly how we can develop, and also looking at the sustainability, because it's very easy to overdevelop quite fast without having checks and balances, and not having the right product in the end of the day to suit it, or having the right capacity, because people come to Sri Lanka to do certain activities, to go to certain places, and these places one day will reach their capacity. And so we need to also see how we can improve our product, how we can attract more tourists, how we can create a few attractions. So I think there's a lot of possibilities, but I think that definitely needs to be a bit more planning and guidance in the way to achieve all of this.
So Maxim, when you look at Colombo for an example, Colombo seems to be now very much crowded. You have a lot of big hotel chains. With ITC just opened a couple of weeks ago. Cinnamon Life is coming into operations on the 1st of August. That's what we hear. We have the Sheratons, we have the Marriotts, we have the Kingsburys. We have a lot of hotel chains in Sri Lanka right now opening up. And then even your organization, you're opening up a hotel in Udawalabe next month. That's what I heard as well. So given all these factors, don't you think that we are in the right direction? Or is it about what we opened a few years ago, now we don't have any other option, but we have to open it up now? And we don't have anything else to do, but just open it up and see whether the economy or the tourism sector would boom. Look, I leave it to the hands of God.
No, I think we can't. We definitely can't leave it to the hands of God. I think we definitely also have to look at market segments because, you know, for example, at Connaissance, we had a lot of European markets, and it's very, very rare that they will even touch by Colombo because they would have maybe 9 to 10 nights, and they would prefer to spend, you know, they're searching for beaches, they're searching for the tropical climates, the hill country, the tea. So they will sometimes avoid Colombo. So we also have to, I think, understand what type of market for each destination within Sri Lanka. I think, you know, it's good to have a holistic global campaign for Sri Lanka as one brand, but we also have to look at these certain areas. For example, Colombo would have the highest number of, I would believe, star-class hotel rooms in the country. So we also have to, I think, have to look at how exactly we can do that. So I think most of that business would be driven by the Indian market. So we have to see what type of attractions they're coming for. So I think, you know, for a lot of, especially South Indians, Sri Lanka has become a bit like the Las Vegas of Las Vegas being their closest casino they can come to. So I think these are things that are happening. So I think we have to really understand that. And when you're doing your promotional pushes and all of that, we really have to really segment the different markets and understand who is coming for what, and also try and build up product. There's no reason, you know, an European client shouldn't come to Colombo. So we need to try and, you know, build that up and, you know, get that going. So I think that's what's interesting. You know, Sri Lanka is...
Very, very quickly, Maxim, just tell us, why can't we attract the Europeans to come to Sri Lanka?
No, I think the Europeans are coming to Sri Lanka. It's definitely a very hot destination at the moment. And yeah, they are coming to Sri Lanka. What I've just meant is that, you know, there are certain destinations, like for example, when you're talking about Colombo, I think sometimes you need a bit more work to be done to attract Colombo as a destination in itself. Because Sri Lanka is an extremely diverse country which can attract all types of tourists for different types of niches.
Right.
So it's it's about positioning that location.
Thank you very much, Maxim Wickramasinghe, Director of Marketing, Connaissance Distilled Lawn and the Therma Collection. I open the floor for questions from our journalists. Onto my immediate right, as I said before, is Naveksha. Onto my immediate left is Nadim. I'm already getting a lot of questions on the number 076-656-5353. I would take up these questions to our panelists as we go along. Nadim, with your permission, shall we start off with Naveksha?
Of course.
Thank you, Shami. I'd like to start off with Rohan, since you spoke about sustainable tourism. We see now hotels on their own are trying to promote sustainable tourism and sustainability by reducing the use of plastic and having those glass bottles and trying to reduce the carbon footprint and so on. But do you think the government of Sri Lanka or the tourism ministry is doing enough to promote Sri Lanka as a sustainable tourist destination?
See, I mean, let me answer like this. You first of all look at where your pain points are. And in those pain points, you try to see how do you make that place sustainable. So, for example, if you take Sigiriya. Sigiriya, you had 3 days in the last maybe 6 years where you had about 17,000 people coming in. And that was the day that it was absolutely chaos at Sigiriya. So the Sri Lanka Tourism Authorities, together with I think UNDP, they contracted some of us to go and do a study and understand how do you make that sustainable. So there was 4 areas that we looked at. You make it sustainable in terms of the people, in terms of buying the produce, making sure that each of the hotels are contributing to the value chain. That was one side. Second was how many tourists can actually the rock take. So there was an expert professor who looked at the density of the rock and then how much at one given moment can you have. Then there was a third one which was where they looked at in terms of the electricity, water, telephones and all the utilities. How much can that area take? So likewise, you have interventions taking place between the public sector and the private sector. But then on the other side is that, you know, when you have a demand and supply chain issue and you go through 4 years of all these disasters hitting you, you're trying to see how you can survive first, which means that you're trying to see how you can get the numbers in. So then sustainability comes a little bit more backward, you know. So
just on that, the approach itself, not just of the Tourism Promotion Bureau, but the government as a whole, right? When you look at, like Maxi said, you need to identify which segments of the market you're catering to. And Sri Lanka, there is a uniqueness to Sri Lanka where you can cater to multiple different segments, from the backpacker to the high ticket, you know, the person who's coming to just visit the casino, drop a few million and then fly out again. But if you look at areas of the country that have a lot of potential for tourism development on the northwest coast, places like Kalpitia, Mana, etc., the north, the east, that the government itself, from the central government, there's a lot of stepmotherly treatment towards those areas. Their concerns are not taken into consideration from the hoteliers and the SMEs in tourism in that area. You have environmental issues like dynamite fishing, which are not being tackled at all. And even now with this new wind power project, where environmental groups have been talking about the damage that this could do to bird migratory patterns. And these are all potential, not just tourism attractions, but also things that are essential for the biodiversity of Sri Lanka itself, that in this scramble to get numbers, that the government is maybe ignoring. Is that a healthy approach?
see, the point actually what Harp was saying, it's a chicken and egg situation. You know, when you have an industry which is having a debt stock of 700 billion, you know, if you don't get your numbers in, you know that the revenue is not going to come and you can't pay your debt. You know, so at that moment of time, obviously, everywhere in the world we have seen this, that you're more interested about trying to make your organization financially viable rather than trying to see in terms of sustainability. It's natural. It's happening in Maldives. Yeah. Though we say there are 176 resorts and you know the Waldorf and the Ritz and all those kinds are charging 8,000 to 15,000. I mean, I operate the Australian, the Maldivian market in AI company that we do brand mapping. Right now there are 896 guest houses that have started and they're selling properties at $60. So last time I visited, I had a discussion at the president's office, you know, where I said you are going to destroy your brand in this strategy. But then the question is that if you look at the people, they have to have an income, the local people, and they run a guest house at $60. So this whole thing of saying once in my life I'm going to go and spend one night in Maldives at $3,000 now does not have to exist when you can go on a weekly basis, you know. So this challenge of sustainability vis-a-vis what you put into the front, it's all about making.
But the idea behind that whole sustainability as well, and I think Max, you can back me up, you need to adopt that kind of thinking, right? Absolutely. That triple bottom line thinking, or like if you're looking even from a corporate sort of governance perspective, now there is stakeholder theory, that these are essential stakeholders.
Bandula must be aware that in right now at the tourist board, there is a sustainability unit that has been set up, which UNDP is linked up, and there are people come and subscribe. Now there is I think about 1,500 entities, and each of them are looked at a sustainability model and they are ranked. So the initiative is there, but the question is, you know, where do you put your focus?
So actually, from your perspective, as like you operate boutique sort of hotels, operate catering to a different sort of clientele.
Yeah, so I think definitely, I think we can't just think about the numbers. So we are very much in terms of our properties, we try to push sustainability as part of our key pillars going forward, not just for but it's also, I think it's a great way of also pushing your brand and putting your name forward. That's not why we do it. We do it because we feel like we can actually, you know, make a bit of an impact. But also there are definitely cost savings as well when you look at certain sustainable practices you can use, using local to various other things. We do a lot of things, for example, recycling our own paper, and these things actually, help and actually generate some income as well, because we've created a few gift shops on that line. But I think, in terms of, I think there's a lot more we can do in terms of certain areas in terms of sustainability. I'll just give an example. Like, for example, we have 2 properties in Valigama. And the Valigama beach is one of the nicest beaches, but I think one of the recurring comments we get is about the rubbish. And about, there are certain places in the world that actually they didn't take the action fast enough. For example, Boracay Islands in the Philippines, is one of the nicest beaches and most beautiful islands in the world, but they did not have a system in place to control the rubbish, the wastewater, and all of that. And these are the type of things that if we don't address now, our paradise island will no longer be a paradise island. Because especially look at places like Valigama, you have a huge influx of foreigners coming and investing. So actually, if you look at the city, if you look at the, it's not just traditional hotels on the beach anymore. It's just the little houses inside that are getting rented out, and you need to have that capacity to cater for all the waste management and all of that comes from these areas. So,
and a big part of that also, Harper, I want to get is the tax revenue that the government earns is what is then can be invested in things like waste management, pipes and all that. But recently we saw it was reported a lot of the press, it was all over social media as well, about foreign nationals running businesses in Sri Lanka. The allegation is that predominantly Russian, Ukrainian and Israeli tourists on long-term stays here, some who've stayed here for extension after extension and been here for a couple of years, then along the south coast and in the east as well, they're running businesses. And the problem there, it's not that they're running businesses, but they're circumventing the domestic financial system, that they are not contributing, in a sense, to the Sri Lankan economy or to the taxman. What's your take on this?
I think the authorities should look at that. Obviously that's happening. And if the authorities who are supposed to look at these things do their job, then this won't be happening.
Why aren't, because this is, this was a recent flare-up, but it has been happening for a long time.
It has been happening, and people come in and, for example, if you have a house in the south and you want to rent it out, I go into partnership with you, right? And I start running a business in your place, right? And yes, payments don't come into the country, payments have been diverted somewhere else. Yeah. So there have to be checks and balances here. You see, so if there is a proper straight line drawn and say, listen, you guys have to do business here. No one's saying don't come and do business here. Open up this country for other people. Because these people who run restaurants and things in the south come up with really great concepts.
Yeah, there's some creative ideas.
Really super stuff, But if you're doing it, do it in the correct way. No one is saying don't come and do it. Run it professionally and run it in a clean manner.
So Bandula, if you look at it over the last few years, you spoke about the government launching a campaign. Are you saying they're launching the campaign in the next few months? So I didn't understand.
Within next, I think, according to now, it's before June they will launch it.
So before a presidential or general election.
That's true. No, not on that.
15th of May.
15th of May.
Okay. So I just want to understand, Bandula, Sri Lanka launched this tagline stating, "You will come back for more," last year. Has that tagline been consulted with the stakeholders in the industry, or even a global campaign that has been
it was discussed with the stakeholders, because the discussion was going on that really, but still we feel, and I think most of the people, they feel it's not the correct tagline. I think most I think the best tagline was land like no other, for me really. That was the best tagline, because we
spin it both ways.
Yes, you can put it in both ways. Yes, I'm true.
So, but isn't there consultation with stakeholders now? Your organization is the Hotel Association of Sri Lanka, which does.
They consult us. They have discussions. Very regular discussions we are having with.
But they just don't listen to you.
because we won't believe now. You know, in the tourist board, like you will say, Tourism Development Authority as well as Tourism Promotion Bureau. There are participation from the private sector. And there are special slots for the tussle. There is 2 slots, and I think Slito they have, and TAS they have, and all those people are there because the board is the comprising of all those. But they take the board decisions at that level, really.
No, but do they consult you all? Consultation is okay,
yes,
but are they listening to you?
Yes, because the private sector involvement.
You say the land like no other is a tagline that you like.
No, that is my personal
view. And then you say you will come back for more is not the real tagline.
That's what we feel. That's what we feel.
When you say we feel, is it you or is it the Association of Sri Lanka?
No. The industry. If you take the industry, hotel industry, that we feel that is not the correct.
Have you consulted the minister in respect of this? And told him?
I am not quite sure about that because we have not have discussion on those things really, right?
I think the fundamental problem here is that it's not only tourism, it's in investments and BOIs and etc. You have to have a policy, strict policy for the next 10 years, a roadmap. No matter who comes, who goes.
The roadmap
that has to be
there.
Clear cut roadmap has to be given. Because what happens, every government changes, a new person comes in, that is changed. So it's a very ad hoc situation. So how do you do it?
You have some experience in this as a former EDB chairman.
You earlier question that about why the government is not taking any action about the foreigners comes and doing their business. But there is no proper authority for the Tourism Development Authority to check those because they are not allowed to do those things. It comes under
But then shouldn't even if the Tourism Development Authority doesn't have the power, some of the establishments are selling alcohol as well. So the excise department, the police, those people are not doing their jobs.
It's not given the proper authority to anyone. That's a problem what we are facing.
But the excise department has the authority to go after people who are selling liquor.
For example, if a hotel is running without a license, the tourist board doesn't have the authority to go and check on those.
But Mr. Bandula, the excise department has the authority to shut it down, but they are not doing it.
That is a different thing what you are talking about.
But like I said, you need
so it seems that there's a corruption issue here as well.
Like no other good tagline, But going back to what you said, like I said, in the tourism industry, in investment, in everything, there has to be a clear-cut policy to attract investors.
Yeah, so Harper, you said in your opening remarks, there are areas that needs to be put in place, right? What are those areas?
Infrastructure, when you say, the connectivity within our country has to improve, which is happening. Let's be honest about it. From where we were, where we are, it's working well. The East Coast is now, a few years ago, it took you 6 hours to get to the East Coast, but I think now you can do it in 4 hours, So those areas have to fall into place. Communication has to fall into place, The most crucial thing what I see, what we need to look at is training. A proper training background to be given to our staff who are serving people. By doing things like that, by having a proper training school, grooming young people to come into the industry. You see, because if you do that, then you can up your game on your ADRs.
So, when you say ADRs, what does that mean?
Your average. From a revenue point of view.
On that note, do you feel that the current setup, the hotel school, that's churning out multiple hotel schools, there's City and Guilds, the tourism board run one,
so
is it insufficient?
City and Guilds is a guild which runs various courses.
Yeah.
So there's the government hotel school.
Yeah.
Right, then you have the William Anglis, which is the international
which has a couple of years.
What I feel is there should be more international schools coming in here. Don't forget, we have a good captive audience from the Maldives, India, students to come to Sri Lanka.
So we have a question for you. Some of the people. Just give me a second. I'll pose this question from our viewer because it's relating to hotel schools. Currently, Sri Lanka is facing a massive shortage of skilled labor.
Yeah.
A lot of people are leaving the country for better prospects, and there are new countries such as Romania and Ireland, which are seeking hoteliers from Sri Lanka. How can we focus on the growth of tourism with a lack of skilled labor?
You see, what's happening worldwide, after COVID, people who are in the hospitality industry left the hospitality industry. They found other things to do. Same way, Sri Lanka. You see places like Romania, and they never took Sri Lankans into that. But today, a lot of people going there because there's a huge void when it comes to hospitality. Now, for us to sustain this, because you see on a daily basis, the hotels, restaurants are losing staff to the Maldives, to the Middle East. Obviously, they're getting bigger service charges, bigger salaries, and etc., etc., etc. You see, the cost of living has gone up here. Therefore, they are taking their families and moving across. You see, for us, I think for us to sustain this, obviously the industry has to grow together. You know, if you look at it 2 years ago, most restaurants and hotels were not paying big service charges. Today, even a doorman in a 5-star hotel or a hotel which is doing reasonably well, their service charges are over 100,000, 150,000 rupees, which is fantastic. You know, so I think the more you drive people into the country, the more better service you get. And like I said, it's training. It's all to do how well you are looked after.
So, Rohantha, you are also a lecturer, you know. So this question, I'm going to pose it to you. Are you happy with the quality of the diploma holders that are coming out from the Ceylon hotel schools located around the country?
See, Shamil, education is one. Other one is the kind of training you get in the property. So one of the biggest problems we currently have, I mean, when you go to any 5-star hotel, even today, what you see is that the experience curve is less because many people have left, the senior people. But the answer to your question, education alone doesn't help you on the job. You need to have that kind of experience hands-on, and that's where our focus has to be. So, you know, what essentially just to conceptualize is, you know, Harpo is talking about a roadmap, Bandula is talking about a clear policy. This is where our policy interventions we need, Shamir. You know, we need to have a clear understanding how many hotel schools are we, how many mobile hotel kitchens do we have across? Is one in Anuradhapura, one in Valimada, maybe one in the western and the eastern sides, and then in relation to the kinds of hotels that we have given approval for, how do we make sure that before the hotel comes, you have built the system. Now, if you look at today as we speak, most of the hotels that you are given approval, which are going to be launched in the next 3 years, are all 3-star. You know, you ask the question, shouldn't we look at the top end? The question is, if you have already given, you're going to come out with 3,000, 4,000 rooms, which are all going to be $60, $80, why would you, how could you attract the top end, you know? So that kind of policy is not thought through.
So Maxim, this question is for you from one of our viewers. Do you believe that minimum room rates will work for places like Kandy and Dambulla?
I really don't think so, because I think what's really needed, and I think it's been discussed, is the demand and supply. I think you made that point about Greece being $180. I think there's a reason for that, because if you look at an island like Mykonos, extremely small, you don't have that many hotel rooms, and a lot of policy as well into building something that fits into the environment in a lot of these Greek islands. So I think when it comes to Sri Lanka, we also need to compete with a lot of destinations that are generally quite cheap. So whether we like it or not.
Who are we really competing with, Max? You know, if you look at the subcontinent, who are we really competing with as a nation?
I would say our biggest competition is definitely, I would say, in terms of a European market, would be the Southeast Asian countries. Maldives is a very different product. I think it's a beach-only product. So I think it also complements Sri Lanka very well, because a lot of people that go to the Maldives will come to Sri Lanka for a couple of days before that. So I think, we just really have to, look into,
Vietnam, Thailand is key competitor right now.
Competitors.
In terms of the proposition that we give.
So Bandura, when we speak about Thailand, Thailand is mainly, it's about sex tourism that is taking center stage. Do you see any of those developments being brought into Sri Lanka? Because we saw even a member of the NPP had spoken about this very vociferously in the local media with regard to bringing in sex tourism to the country. In terms of a tourism perspective, what are your thoughts on this?
At the moment, we are not marketing Sri Lanka in that manner, really. So actually, I think the casino is a bit popular. There is special, and I think when the waterfront or the John Keel's property comes up, that it will be in a massive. I think ITC also came into Sri Lanka aiming on that really. Right, so that part we are looking after, but not the other. But I would say,
but don't you think invariably when you look at casinos, there is an aspect in terms of
the development has to be there really. There has to be there, right? And currently nobody is marketing Sri Lanka as a
destination like that.
Yes,
Look at Singapore for a good example. The casino came in there, just boom, it just all went up. You see, also the other thing is, we as a country, there's so many things we can market, from underwater diving. Various wrecks. Yeah. Look, a good example is the Pico Trail, which was discovered over the last year or two. Hats off, man. The amount of locals who are doing that now. Right? So there's so much within this little country we have which can be taken and promoted.
Let's not forget the fact that even Crown Casino in Australia want to build a property in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, but that was all political, though.
And it was all...
Yeah, that was all a political game which was played, which I think now is so stupid. You see, unfortunately, we lost out on that. We lost out on that. We lost a lot out on that. But thankfully, there is something happening now, you know. But leaving the casino aside, there's so many other things which we can look at. The East Coast. You see, many years ago, this country was known for Hikkaduwa, Nigambo. Old-time tourism I'm talking of. Yeah. Right? And Arugambe, which is yet holding fort. Hikkaduwa has gone off the radar. Nigambo is yet on the radar, right? Arugambe, one of the top 10 surfer paradises in the world. Now, Waligama has come onto the radar. So there's so much this country, one of the biggest density of leopard, right? Highest density of leopard. Look at Jaffna. Look at the diaspora you can bring into Jaffna. There's so much we have as a little country. If we do destination marketing in our country, Trincomalee on the East Coast, Arugambe, why did so many people build hotels in Pasikuda many years ago? What were they promised? They were promised.
How would you feel like, I'm just trying to figure out, as we're going to all of the different problems that you're putting up, potential solutions that are there. And now we were talking about potentially other parts of the country, like you were saying, that need to develop. The east, the northwest, Kalpitiya, Mana, those areas as well. Do you feel like we need to maybe decentralize the subject of tourism promotion?
You see, I don't know whether it's such a small country, you don't really need to decentralize it. You just need to have a proper roadmap.
But if the voices of people who are on the periphery are not being taken into account.
So you see what, look at today tourism, 90% of it is all done by the private sector. Leave it to them, give it to them to do it. Yeah. It's their investment. Government shouldn't get involved in it.
But your answer is right. For example, we did the tourism strategy for Ua province, and it was funded by the EU. And we went to all the stakeholders and understood what they want, like what Harpo was telling, but let the people decide. The positioning is very clear. It will be the adventure province of Sri Lanka. And
which to the people who are running
unique.
Businesses there seems like it's so obvious. How come you guys in Colombo can never think about it?
The question that Shami asked is so valid, sex tourism. See, globally, sex tourism is a starting point of tourism. But then they move and market. Now, for example, Thailand, somewhere, they knew that it was skin that was selling. But they came out with a global campaign about 5 years back, where they started talking about Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai. They promoted the other destination. That's what like the team is
There are some beautiful destinations in Thailand, by the way.
Thailand has opened up cannabis market.
So the question is, very rightly here, once we put the policy perspective right, the private sector will drive the numbers and they will come out with the uniqueness. But then the question is, the point you very nicely asked from Bandula, the stakeholder participation is critical, and if you don't listen to what the stakeholders are saying, like what we had last 2 weeks, same story.
Yeah, but Bandula, the problem really is this stakeholders. Even the stakeholders are split. Now, if you look at the Hotel Association of Sri Lanka, there were loggerheads between you and the Slighto, you know.
Yeah, unfortunately that happened.
Aren't all
That
supposed
is
to
mainly
give it
because
one
of
voice
the,
and
that is the
express?
first time it happened, I think, in the history because of this minimum rate. Because actually this minimum rate was in operation, I think, few years back. I can't remember exactly what year. But at that time everybody agreed, right? But this time the Slighter was against. Right,
But again, with
I'll explain to the Maxine will not agree with me. Now you just think about when a Colombo 5-star is selling at the rate of $60 at that one time, right? Colombo 5 stars were selling at the rate of $60, right? And then how can a small hotel or a 3-star or 4-star hotel maintain their rates in round-trip hotels? The DMCs or the travel agents, they are demanding when a 5-star is giving at the rate of
you can respond to that if
$60.
Yeah.
How can you claim $80?
Yeah, but I think there's a clear misconception, because if you took off the minimum room rate now, that probably would not happen. And the reason for it was this minimum room rate came straight after the economic crisis, where the tourism numbers were extremely low. So we see a lot of statistics that are actually comparing it. But if you compare then to today, of course, it will definitely show a better picture. But I think, you have to basically let the demand and supply sort out your rates, because if you are artificially inflating your rates, you're definitely going to be losing out on a large market share in the future. And I think that it really will definitely hamper the competitiveness, and that is something that Sri Lanka needs to always keep in mind, because we often hear the government and the tourist board talking about numbers. And I think coming back into marketing separate destinations, I think if we are to go to your 3 millions, your 5 millions and all of that, we have to look at exactly how, and being a bit strategic on how exactly we market. I think this visa issue comes in. There's something very interesting that I learned when doing a bit of research, is that India has a visa fee for peak and off-peak. So there are certain things, like we spoke about the months of May, June being low, but May, June is actually one of the best diving seasons on the East Coast. So there's a lot of marketing that has to be done, really understanding this and filling those capacities and those voids that need to be filled. I think, coming back to it, so I think
Maxim, we spoke about this visa issue. Now, we know what exactly transpired during the last few weeks. Would that have an effect on the tourism arrivals to the country as we speak?
Yeah, absolutely, because I think, firstly, now, thankfully, from the intervention of the Minister of Tourism and I think several other stakeholders, the visa is back to normal. So it's $50 for general traveler who is not SARC and it's not in the free visa scheme. It definitely does have a big impact, because you think about it, you're traveling with your family of 4, you're paying $400. You're paying $400 just to come to the country, as it stood back before it was reverted. So I think these type of things definitely have a large impact. And I think every time you see that a free visa scheme has been put forward, there has been increases in tourism.
There has been an increase.
There always is an increase, because it's not only just the monetary value, it's also the marketing effect.
But Singapore right now, Bandula, is it free visa?
It's free visa. No, nobody needs visa.
It's not even a visa. You fill in the arrival card online.
Arrival card and getting it.
And then you scan your passport and walk through.
So do you all advocate that for Sri Lanka, Bandula, a free visa for everyone?
No, because SARC countries we give free visas. For SARC 7 countries we have identified, and we are giving free visas to those countries. So that's what they are going to do a study. I think President has appointed a committee to go into the details about this visa issue.
The point is that what Maxim is very rightly saying is, be data driven. Is this the time for this intervention to happen? You are in off season, that things are rough, occupancy has come down to 15 and 20%, am I right, Bandula?
Yes.
Yeah? Is this the time with this intervention had to be done? Even if there were the cabinet approvals and whatever that has been happened, the question is that the stakeholders were not aware. And when you go and dig into the details, you realize that even as we speak today, there's confusion. Because people are saying, you know, when they go to the website, they have to go through a particular other website, it's down, you know, and then they say, can you reply and answer again? Then when you have to apply for the visa, there's a whole set of documents that you have to fill, the complexity is high. So, you know, what people forget is that people who are coming this month have selected to come to this country 6 months back, Shamil. So, after you have commit everything, when you're about to come, you change these rules in the game, you know, there's absolute confusion. There are people calling the embassies and asking, embassies are not aware, they're asking the travel agents. And now, you know, it's not these people who come here and immediately buy a visa. People are using travel agents and the destination DMCs. So DMCs are not being told. So if the industry is not aware and the DMCs are not aware, absolute confusion on the brand. Is this what we need?
When you say DMCs, what is it?
Destination Management Company.
Yeah. But it's actually the damage control, you know. Look at the energy to go into damage control. That is even worse. Just imagine yourself, you have booked a holiday here 6 months ago. A week before you turn up, everything changes. Just imagine the damage control the tourist board has to do. The campaign you drove to bring people in suddenly changed within 48 hours.
People will not be coming back for more.
And Shamir, let's look at it strategically. Data came out last month that we were targeting 5,130 billion to be our revenue, and our revenue is going to be only 4,130. There's going to be a drop of 594 billion. Very clearly they said the revenue is coming down by 594 billion after all of us are being taxed. Now the question is that why would you want to give the revenue that you are earning to somebody else abroad? 15 billion doesn't make sense. Number two is that IMF very clearly says in the governance diagnostic study that when you are doing procurement, it has to be on a platform where everybody knows, because this is public money. The first time in the history of the world, IMF did a diagnostic study in the whole of Asia, and our country was the first one, and the 16-point plan was mentioned. Point number 3 was any procurement must be on a platform. How come nobody is aware?
So Bandula, we interviewed last week Murtaza Jafarji from the Advocate Institute, and we asked him about, he spoke about a brighter spot for Sri Lanka, and then we asked him a question about, when you speak about brighter spot, does that mean that the policy direction of the government has worked thus far? Then he went on to say, yes, the policy direction has worked, but there has been a bit of luck also. So in terms of the tourism industry, do you all depend on luck also? Or is it about policy direction at the end of the day? Because you spoke about, Harper spoke about a 10-year roadmap. You spoke about the policy direction. Do you all also need a bit of luck?
No, I don't think we can't depend on luck when we talk about tourism. There should be a policy direction, really. Actually speaking, the procurement systems and everything what the government is having is not suitable for the tourism industry.
Outdated.
Right, outdated. We have to change all those. I think government is taking action on that, really, but they are discussing about that from, I think, last year or before. They are going to have a separate system for the Tourism Promotion Bureau. They will change everything accordingly. So that's happening. That is on the card. So those things has to be done, really. If you as we are talking about, 90% of the business is done by in the tourism industries by the private sector. So private sector involvement is a must to drive this tourism industry.
So I remember when I was a kid, Bandula, there used to be government-managed hotels in the country.
Hotels Corporation.
But I don't see them anymore. Have they?
They have privatized.
All that went.
The best locations in Sri Lanka is...
Yeah.
Just before we run out of time, is just because you're talking about the different segments of the market that we need to target as well. And maybe one very important sort of area that we haven't really been able to capture still is MICE tourism, conventions, exhibitions, conferences, etc., which destinations like Singapore, KL, Jakarta, even Bangalore now, Bangkok makes big business out of MICE tourism. And do you think that Sri Lanka now with Port City coming up as well, and especially for restaurants in the city as well, this is potential big business areas. When you have things like a minimum room rate, or when the government is sort of intervening in this way, is that a hindrance to developing this area? Because it seems to be clear that the organizers of these events are choosing to have it in destinations like Bangkok, KL, Jakarta, Singapore, because they're able to get better deals.
Yeah.
How do we develop this area?
What happens there is, it's a good point actually, where country like Bangkok, Jakarta, their offerings are much more than Colombo. You see?
There's more to see.
There's much more offering. I mean, from the current context, maybe time to come, Colombo will.
There's also
much more to
accessibility.
offer
They all
because,
have better
all
public
coming
transport
in.
systems.
There'll be a lot more for someone to come on we say, for example, a conference, a Bajaj conference, for example. There were 500 Indians turning up here for a conference, and we now with the cinema life opening up, there's more capacity coming in for the MICE market. MICE market is a massive thing. The spin-off of MICE market from the trishaw driver to, you name it, everybody gets that, So country like Bangkok, Jakarta and places like that, yes, their offerings are massive. So Colombo, in time to come, I think it's a big thing. It'll happen because it's a great destination for any Indian person to come, right? They got the casino, they got the beaches, they got the shopping, they got quite a lot to do here, So I think
how do we go about laying the groundwork for this to make sure that it happens sooner rather than later?
The answer is very clear. What Maxim said was that you have to be data driven. Now, why was this minimum rate questioned? Because if you have a single person coming, they will pay $120. It's not a problem. But if you have a group of 60 coming in, obviously they are looking at economies of scale.
Yeah.
Now, when you go and land a minimum room rate, you cannot get that MICE market. And that's why that whole team came and said, take away that concept.
Rather for the MICE, they were giving 25% discount from the rates.
Unfortunately, I will be honest, we've had few requests as well, and we just couldn't compete with the other destinations because that 25% actually isn't when you're bringing in 125, 200 rooms sometimes for these massive events, and that is what we have seen. And we're very thankful for the minimum room rate to come out, because when you're bidding for such an event, or when you're trying to, you have to really be competitive. It's usually we are going destination versus destination, sometimes even different stakeholders within Sri Lanka will bid for them, and if you don't have that flexibility as well. And another point also is, if all these countries have really set up their infrastructure to host such events. If you look at conventions at the moment, I mean, with Cinnamon Life and all these products coming in, that does boost our capacity, but I think also we need to see how really we can bring in some investment in to create those type of centers.
So, but you were trying to say something.
No, actually, for a decades we had only BMICH for the facilities. Now, I have been managing it for 16 years. I was the CEO there, but I turned it around because I am the first private sector employee.
SLECC as well.
But
that's
but we had the demand for the facilities and everything.
No, I am sarcastic when I say
I am the first private sector employee who came there to turn it around, because until such a time there was nothing. I am the one who.
No, but I want to ask the four of you a question now. If Sri Lanka is to compete on a global scale, if the four of you tomorrow are appointed as the Minister of Tourism, what recommendations would you have? Let's start off with Bandula. Bandula, what sort of recommendations would you have now?
No, actually, as I
hypothetically, okay, I know probably you don't want to come into politics, but hypothetically, if you are appointed as Minister of Tourism,
the policy has to be changed. The tourism policy has to be. We have to have a clear policy for tourism with the private sector involvement, and that is number one. As we are talking about MICE tourism in Colombo, we need, because in the other countries we have massive things where you can accommodate 5,000, 6,000 people for any conference or any event. So where do we have? right? And I think the hotel capacities are going up in Colombo. How many new properties have come up and how many rooms are there? And I think nearly over 15,000 or 20,000 rooms in Colombo. So you have the facility for that. But if you are going to bring a MICE tourism or event, like for example, he said Bajaj conference, right? Convention, 5,000 people. Where are going to accommodate them in one place for a conference or
I guess another problem you'd also have is the transportation infrastructure.
That's well. Yeah. The other thing is, now we need a
We won't have enough eggs.
Yes.
That's true.
So that is where we have to think about.
But there has been big conferences in Sri Lanka. Now the annual tea convention is happening.
So what is the capacity? I can remember I did the AIDS conference with 3,000 people in 1998, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 1998 is a long time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That is with 3,000 people.
You can't compare 1998 to 2024.
Yes, that's what I'm telling. So
But
3,000 we got down.
Yeah,
3,000 we got
but
down.
now there is talk about the Bora community having their annual
3,000
convention in
people.
Sri Lanka. Now
That is the third or the fourth time.
People are going to come to Sri Lanka. If that's the case, they are going to be accommodated at hotels.
Yeah. Which is good.
Yeah.
You see, the spin-off for the trishaw drivers. Just think the whole community benefits from this whole thing.
The restaurants.
I'll never forget when we were working at the Hilton one time, the Barmy Army turned up.
Yeah.
The Barmy Army turned up for the test.
Test matches.
They drank the pub silly. We ran short of beer. I'm serious. But we are not geared for that time. And say, in time to come, yes, we will. Times have changed. We will get geared for that.
We're not geared for it as a regular occurrence.
And look at if you run the MICE market and we say 3,000 people coming to Colombo. They're going to go back and tell their family, hey, that's a lovely country. Our next trip is there. So look at the spin-offs coming for you.
No, but even
So,
if you look
Mr.
at
Rohantha,
it,
the reason I was asking about the MICE segment as well is
I'll
because...
come back to you. Let me just ask all four of you your thoughts. Bandul, are you done with your thoughts? Right, so let me ask you.
Like I would say is have a clear-cut policy. Have a policy manual from marketing to strategy to implementation, everything, and have professionals running it. Like I said before, it's 99% private driven. Every hotel you see is not government funded. It's their own money put into it, and it's been managed by government. So I think it should be left to the private sector. Say, okay, you have invested, you manage your investment collectively. See, that is what.
But Harpo, is that fair? Because sometimes when things are not going that well, the private sector companies look for government assistance. In
because
case of
COVID, the government picks up TDL, etc., and there are big coffers in the treasury of TDL. So obviously,
TDL also was proposed by the Tussle. That was one of our.
So when you got hit with COVID and all that thing, you went back to the government and say, hey, you have picked up some money from us. Can we have a bit of that money?
Help us.
The TDL. If you're doing private sector and you are putting equity, 50% equity, 50% funded, your bank will look after you because it's for their interest as well. You see, to look after the person. So I think that having a clear-cut policy, and let's be honest, this is the greatest product we have as a country, tourism. And look at the Maldives, such a small country, their biggest income earner is tourism, and we are not far from that. Just increase your room rates, cater, because we are a country which is so blessed that we can cater for different segments of them. Golfing, wildlife. So there's so much different segments we can cater to at different levels also.
Rohantha, your thoughts?
Number one.
You of course have political ambitions, no?
No, I don't. Never. I like policy, but not politics. I don't mind talking politics, but Shamit, answer to your question, number one, I'll focus on a very strong positioning campaign for Sri Lanka. That's the first thing I will do, and I would put in maybe about $15 to $20 million on a global campaign, because that's the kind of money that Maldives spend, Malaysia, Thailand has spent. If you really want to, make an impression on a global traveler, and the private sector should be allowed to run their own establishments. The studies have been done across different parts of the world, and they have realized that tourism is an art than a science. So how Bandula runs, how Harpo runs, or Maxim runs, each one is individualistic. Totally individualistic. It has its own business model. So you got to allow them to do what they have to do, but country branding is where we are weak. Nobody knows what we stand for as a brand.
Maxim?
Yeah, I think the main thing I would say is we definitely have to also look at it very long term and looking at preserving what we have. We do have a lot of issues in terms of the environment, in terms of conservation and keeping our attractions at the level that it should be. And there's still a lot more that we can promote in terms of our natural environment, our cultural heritage, our beaches and all of that. But I really think there's to be a lot of work done to see how we can preserve that for future generations, because there are lots of issues that come up that we've already spoken about on certain ones. And I would also say I think that definitely needs to be a bit more overall intergovernmental work as well, because there's often things that bounce around that in terms of protecting wildlife, in terms of looking at certain policies and looking at even regulations such as building regulations and things like that, that we have to really look at our beaches, our different areas, and have individual plans for all types of places. Nigambo's plan might be very different to Tangor. And I think that's how also we can create a destination which has lots of different attractions and things to do it. But I think number one definitely has to be sustainability and seeing how we can really, because I feel like if everything goes well, there's going to be a massive boom in the next years to come. So we need to make sure that after those 5 years that we still have a product that's still there to sell. Yeah. So I think that's very crucial, and I think for that to happen, all different ministries have to get together, because that's often the problem. Tourism ministry is not in charge of Sigiriya. Tourism ministry doesn't have any impact in terms of wildlife parks. And sometimes it's for the best as well, because wildlife is there to protect wildlife, tourism is there to promote tourism. So we have to find that right balance, I would say, between all of that and have a clear policy, which includes all of this going forward in terms of marketing, in terms of all of that, and continuity.
I think we had something to ask Rohantha.
Yeah. Rohantha, just the reason, because you asked, we were talking about this sustainability. I'd like to bring it back full circle as well. You're talking about the sustainable approach, adopting a sustainability approach in our tourism development. It seems to me, listening to everything that we've been talking about, that with a heavy focus on developing MICE tourism to bring in revenue, we can then also have the attention that is needed for the other parts of the country to focus on the issue of promoting sustainability, addressing issues. This, of course, requires a statewide, government-wide will and policy interventions to get this done. But to, on the environmental side, to address those issues, on the logistics side, to fix transportation and things, it seems to me that these specific segments of the tourism market is what we should really be focusing on at this moment.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Best example is Central Province. See, Central Province strategic plan was done by myself and a team. It was, I think, funded by UNDP, I think. And what we found out was that in the Central Province, the tree cover is 65%. So, if you look at positioning Central Province, you could position it as the carbon neutral province of Sri Lanka. The top 5 rivers start from the Central Province, and there are certain government institutions which are totally solar power driven. So and the Picotry actually cuts across Central Province and goes to so it's a real jewel of all the jewels of Sri Lanka is seen in Central Province under the carbon neutral footprint. So I agree 100%. The sharper you can be with regard to sustainability and making sure that all the departments work together under the provincial council, which is what we saw in the Central Province. The provincial council, all the departments come under, and there's some magic that they do.
See, this is an interesting thing that you talk about, because there is a lot of, including parties that are vying for the people's vote to come into government, who sort of list the provincial councils as useless. But as you mentioned, the Central Provincial Council, also the Eastern Provincial Council, also the Northern Provincial Council for the time that it was in existence from 2013 through to 17, have done a fair bit when it comes to tourism promotion in their specific areas, haven't they?
100%. I mean, I don't know whether you know, the 65% of the tourists who come to Sri Lanka goes to the Dalada Maligawa. So, Central Province is a key entry point for the tourists. Now, the only problem there is that from there, they don't go into the rest of the region. So, one of the missions they have there is that they want to increase the domestic tourism to have 25%, 25 million footfall. So, they have identified tourism, how much is it going to bring, domestic tourism, how much is it going to bring, and how it's going to be scattered across, you know. So, there are classic models that has worked in the country, and that's the point that I just was putting into the table.
So, Harpo, interestingly, now we're talking about elections. Now we're talking about a debate that is supposed to happen between the NPP and the SJP. Why is that none of the political parties thus far has not spoken about tourism? They speak about all the things, but they don't talk about tourism. Why not?
I think probably they haven't spoken about it. I think their election manifesto hasn't come out. But any government coming in, it can be the NPP, it can be the SJP, it can be whoever, you know, I think they know that tourism is the key income earner. You know, so they're not going to, they just have to only take it and improve it, work on it, and make it better. So to make it better, you give to the professionals to make it better. You see, so if there's, like I said, anyone coming through, that they make if it's the third, they should make it the #1 income earner for the country. Let's strive to be the #1 income earner. Because we have got to 3, it's just 2 more to go for. By going to #1, you're creating so much of jobs, right? So much can happen. So I think any government coming in, they're not going to say, put tourism in the back burner. I think tourism should be in the front runner to improve your economy.
So, Bandula, interestingly, I don't know whether you remember, but I'm sure you do. In 2015, the government decided to make the Mattala International Airport a paddy storage facility. Do you remember?
I can remember. Yes.
You can remember, no? Do you remember who was the Prime Minister at that time?
Yes.
Who?
Current President.
Current President, Ranil Wickremesinghe. Now they have decided to have a joint venture between an Indian and a Russian firm which has won a 30-year contract to manage Sri Lanka's Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport. Do you think that this would attract tourism and this is the right decision at this point of time in terms of, in the perspective of a tourism professional and a
it's not a I think it will not attract any tourism it will not give any attraction to the tourism, right? It will give some income to the government. So as we are talking about, we are in debt, right? So they will give some funds to the for
but
the
when
government.
you go to the southern belt of the country, there are a lot of Russians, Ukrainians who have come directly from Russia to Mattala International Airport, and from Mattala they've found refuge at probably Airbnb or
all these things are, yes.
I mean, that happened during the war. You see, it's like the Israelis were here during COVID. They couldn't go back to their countries. We gave them free visas to stay here for 1 year or 2 years.
1 year.
You know, that's a part of a country. You know that you can't stop that. You know, if you are in a country where there's COVID and you stay here, you stay because you can't go to your country. Some of them were not accepted back into their countries. You see, and they learned to live here and they started loving the country. And we should be thankful that they're here. You know, Mattala, like you said, Mattala Airport and things were things we put on the map. And, you know, that time, you know, just after the war, yes, we needed another airport in the country. For sure, we needed another airport. It's very important because we don't have a big airport other than Katnaka. And that has come into use today with bad weather conditions. Flights are diverted there, so don't forget that part. Are they flights will be diverted to Chennai or some part of India?
Definitely not a paddy storage facility.
No, so saying that as a little country, we are lucky to, but it was totally mismanaged. That's a different story, you know.
But Shamil, the answer to your question of why these political parties are not addressing tourism is very simple, because latest research, I just told you that, shows that 91% of people, their expenditure is more than their income. This was a research that came in day before yesterday. So most of the political parties are talking about living. How can I make sure that your cost of living is coming down so that they can get their vote in? So that's where the focus is. And if they don't know about tourism, it's good.
Yeah. So Maxim, right now, if you look at it, the export industry is being hit severely due to the fluctuation of the exchange rate. We saw even yesterday, the National Chamber of Exporters held a press conference with several key stakeholders in the industry, talking about the fact that they don't need an exchange gain, but they at least need some sort of hope in terms of keeping the exchange rate static right throughout, just to make sure that they don't lose money. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're also very much export-driven industry, because we're getting dollars into the country. I mean, it's very different. We don't send a service out, but we get people to come here. Yeah, absolutely, because the fluctuation doesn't help anyone. I think because especially most of the hotels will quote in dollars. So if the dollar rate comes down, you're actually making a lot less than you actually planned for, you budgeted for. Even in terms of price competitiveness, that's also can be quite dangerous, because the more your dollar comes down, the more expensive your tourist package becomes, and also your spending money, your spending power also goes down. So I think it's definitely an impact. I think the main thing is if there's some sort of stability, or just sudden small fluctuations, is what's ideal, I think, for anyone in the export sector as well as tourism, which I personally consider an export industry. But
yes.
It goes back and forth in the technicalities, the way the government sees it. But yeah, I think it's extremely crucial. And I think just coming back also, I think on the point of Mattala, flights landing there. Yes, there were a lot of flights landing there, but also we need to understand reasons why. These were charter airlines that came in at almost basically nil, very low landing fees as well. So is that investment really necessary, or did it pay for itself? No. So I think definitely, we have to also, as a government, also has to see how they can make money with all the entities that they have. So I think it's definitely I don't know too much of the deal, but hopefully that can at least create some jobs and some income in that area.
Right, so I'm getting a lot of questions, so I'm going to pose this to Bandula. India has introduced a digital paying interface called UPI for Sri Lanka on behalf of people who visit here from India, which facilitates users to pay online from their currency itself without physically converting money into their currency. Would it be possible to discuss with other countries to come up with such a mechanism, or even an agreement per se?
Yeah, it's a good thing to do, really, because there is no I think a transaction in their currency, this thing, because it's very good, because there won't be any conversion problems or anything like that, because now for I think until 6 months ago, they approved to acceptance of the Indian rupee in Sri Lanka. Otherwise, we were not accepted to allowed to accept the Indian rupee. So these things are to come up, really. These are the things that we should improve in the future to get more that's foreigners.
Very valid, because see, as we speak right now, the GCEC has got together, and which is like the Bahrains and the Dubais and the Qatars are got together, and they are forming an alliance. They are putting something like $30 million only for the promotional drive. They might come out with a free visa, like a Schengen visa, including a railway track, and they're also doing a cruise line, so that you go to all the countries. So, these are the kinds of strategic moves that policymakers need to make. Now, even on the Indian currency, it is the Asian, until 2026, the Asian region is going to be the hub for tourism. We have to make the best out of it as at now. So, if India is growing at about a 6 to 7% GDP growth. It's great for us to like link together, you know. But then what the question you ask about the dollar, what everybody is asking is that this dollar of 290 or now bringing down to 270, see, it is not based on fundamentals, no. It's just because you're not paying and you're not opening the market for the cars to come. If you open that, straight away your dollar goes up to 360, 380. So right now it's an artificial situation. So for us to do our planning in terms of dollar and in terms of the paying of the local staff here, we are in a very challenging situation.
Luckily, in the hotel industry, we don't do much of imports.
Yeah.
Right? We are curtailing down as hoteliers. We are curtailing down using of the imported items.
Saying that no, we do import the alcohol.
Those things are there. That is, those
depends on the type of product.
ingredients.
Ingredients.
But you're doing an Italian restaurant.
No, so you look at from a restaurant or any hotel for that matter. You know, when the crisis hit us, alcohol came at a cost. Cheese came at a cost. Importations were stopped. Right? But good thing happened about that. You must always look at the flip side. The local producers of alcohol started up in the game. They came out with great vodkas, great gins, which today most people are going for the local thing. Because the imported stuff, it's very expensive. And people have got used to having the local stuff.
You think it drove innovation in the local market?
It drove innovation, absolutely. So this is the good thing which happened out of COVID and all these other things, you know. So those things have, cheese. Today people are producing their own cheese here. And they're giving a good run to the imported things.
So, Bandula, let me ask you a political question because we have to ask about we are talking about elections, we have to ask this question. So, I'm going to ask you this question. So, whether or not for you to bet or whether you want to duck or whether you want to leave, it's up to you. Bandula, now we're talking about election and we're talking about a presidential or a general election that will come up this year. We don't know yet as to no dates have been announced. But we see a lot of political parties making their submissions, talking about economy and all that and more. Which political party is more favorable for tourism?
Very good question. Which political party?
I told you can either leave.
No, not actually political party. That is depending on the. I think anybody has to support the tourism industry because no one can run the country without the tourism industry. Because tourism is, as Harpo said, is the easiest way to get out foreign exchange. Right, and it goes down to the level of a person who is selling a king coconut on the wayside. Right. So it's divided in everybody to all the grassroots level. It goes down to the grassroots level. But what the foreigner is bringing or a dollar the foreigner is bringing into country, right? It goes down to that level. Yeah. So I think any political party, we are not interested about any political party to favor or anything like that. I think everybody has to, I think all the political party has to give the first priority to tourism to bring it up to the number one exchange. Yes.
You know, I would say something a bit different. I say, why does tourism need politics? Like most things. We have institutions that are there. Why can't those institutions run a long-term plan? And this is often where we go wrong, saying this person will come in and improve that. But no, we should look at a more long-term plan where institutions have the right mandate to take those forward over 10, 15, 20 years. And I think if that doesn't happen, then we are stuck every time we change our political party, we change our plan, and then we lose on the momentum that we would have gathered, and some plans might be better than others, and you know that's up for debate. But I think there's also a talk at one point of making the tourist board, for example, a company by guarantee. I think these are type of things we have to look at because we can't have our roadmap just change. And I haven't been in the industry long, but I've seen my fair share of roadmaps already. So I think that's what we need as the industry.
With the change of every government, there is a new roadmap. So that's not really suitable for the industry.
Not only the roadmap, you just think how many people have changed at the tourism tourism.
Today, Diana Kamage lost her parliamentary seat also.
And she was campaigning for
Cannabis.
Shamir, see, a very interesting point you brought up. Now, if you look at India, okay, even after Modi came in, the Incredible India campaign could not be changed. It was tried. He wanted to bring out a new campaign, but and the creatives are on board. When they checked it out, the creatives didn't do good on the top box, and Incredible India continued. We see this in Maldives also. Those successive political parties have come. The Sunny Side of Life campaign of Maldives, with all the political issues, has been there. So I think what's important here is that the industry has to be together, and the industry has to be strong. That they say that, you know, unless scientifically there is a logic, one should not change strategy. You know,
Right.
so
So, Badr, you want to add something? Or?
No. Thank you. No, I don't know.
Did you duck? Did you leave? Or did you heat off the park? Let the people decide. Let the people decide. Navesh,
Yes,
quite, did not ask much questions. You are coming, hailing from the tourism industry now, not a journalist, but I expect you to ask more questions.
I have a question to Maxim. Since you represent the younger generation and we're going to a more of a digital era, do you think Sri Lanka and Sri Lankan tourism is utilizing digital in terms of marketing to its best of ability?
I think, we need to see when the campaign rolls out to see what exactly is in store. I think, there are certain commendable things. I think the tourist board has woken up that marketing has changed. People sometimes don't want to listen to what a tourist board want to say, but they want to hear from their favorite influencers, bloggers, Instagrammers, whatever you want to call them. And I think that's very important. I think one thing that we also have to look at is the virality of how content flows nowadays. So I think that is very important to get people coming in, posting. And if you look at places like Bali, which I recently visited, and you see like the amount of little things they have done to take a picture, to post it on Instagram, and a lot of that tourism is actually driven from Instagrammable things. So like there are small things that I think we definitely have to look at. So I think that part will always be driven because Sri Lanka is an amazing destination and has so much to offer and looks really good online. But there definitely also we have to, I think, push from the tourist board side to show a bit of a different side of Sri Lanka, because if we don't show all the different unique things there are to do in Sri Lanka, sometimes those will be missed out by the people who come in, and you have to make these things a little popular. So I think their steps are there. I think this global campaign will be really what helps position all of that going forward.
It will be launched, this year. Touchwood indeed. So let's wrap up tonight's show. I want to listen to all four of you as to what the way forward to Sri Lanka is. Let's start off with Maxim. You have 1 minute, Maxim.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think we have to look at sustainability, we have to look at long term. And yeah, I think, we've got a great product, and as long as we can keep this product and keep talking about it in the right way, I think we'll do well. And yeah, just make sure that we can have a sustainable approach to developing the country and looking at different niches and getting the country out there.
Thank you very much, Maxim Wickramasinghe, Director Marketing Cornerstones de Ceylon and Therma Collection, Rohan Tatikorala, former Chairman of Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau and EDB.
See, Shamir, my conclusion is that tourism is right now the second highest foreign exchange earner. It has moved from 3 to 2. It has a potential of becoming 1. I mean, it could be a $7 billion industry for sure, which contributes to about 25% of GDP. But how that can become materialized is that tourism does not belong to anybody. It belongs to a person, a Sri Lankan. And if you look at the success stories that has happened today, all around the world, the different kinds of awards that Sri Lanka has won across, all the promotions has happened from people. They have gone viral, they have developed their own videos, including foreigners, and they are the one who created the share of voice for us to be heard to win all these awards. So I think if we can just keep this trend going, and make sure that policymakers don't come and intervene and create an issue like what we have seen, which we discussed today, and allow the people to grow and make the business big, we can be very strong.
Thank you very much, Rohan. The Harpo Gunaratna, CEO and founder of Harpo's Cafes and Restaurants, former president of the Colombo City Restaurants Collection.
You see, this year is a very crucial year. As you all know, it's the election year, right? And for as stakeholders, I sincerely hope, that the policy doesn't change, that we have it like whoever comes in writes the proper policy, put the guidelines in place, as I said before, change the old-fashioned rules and bring those rules, the current, the excise law is in 1928. Those laws had to be rewritten for the current for tourism to grow. So I think we need to focus on things of that nature, tap into new markets, look at it that way, and like Rohan said, and like we're all hoping, it's a people's business. It's the private sector driven business, giving umpteen number of employment to so many number of people across the country. Let the private sector run this. It's our money. We just need for the government to, shall I say, facilitate things and make things easy for us. That's what I would like to see that happening. And like I said, it's a very crucial year, and tourism is up on the move. And I sincerely hope the next few months that nothing happens, that more and more tourists come in here, and that we will, as I said, make the number one. That's what I like to say.
Thank you very much, Harpo Gunaratna. I now move to Bandula Ekanayaka, Vice President of the Hotel Association of Sri Lanka and Director CEO of Blackpool Holdings.
We have a good product, right? We have good facilities, we have good hotels, and we have all kind of hotels. Like if you take 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, and recently that lot of boutique hotels came up with all the facilities and all those. We have our product is in good condition, and another thing is hospitality is in our blood, right? There's 2 words, right? So that's with that, everybody has to help. Everybody should get together and put this as the number 1 foreign exchange earner.
Thank you very much. Bandula Ekanayaka, Vice President of the Hotel Association of Sri Lanka and Director CEO of Blackpool Holdings. Harpo Gunaratna, CEO and founder of Harpo's Cafes and Restaurants, former President of the Colombo City Restaurants Collection. Rohan Tatukorala, former Chairman of Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau and EDB, Export Development Board. Maxim Wickramasinghe, Director Marketing, Connaissance de Ceylon and the Therma Collection. Thank you very much, Naveksha, and thank you very much, Nadeem, for joining us this evening on the show. I leave you tonight with a quote, as I always do. Blessed are the curious, for they shall have adventures. A land like no other, that's Sri Lanka. And if you visit, you will come back for more. Take care and good night.